So last weekend, my neighbor Greg came over while I was cleaning out my garage and asked if he could borrow my lawnmower. Now, Greg's a nice enough guy, but he's also the kind of person who once tried to roast marshmallows over his gas stove and set off the fire alarm, so I was a little hesitant. But he promised he just needed to even out the grass for a barbecue, and, knowing his backyard looked like a jungle had lost a bet with a weed whacker, I figured, what could possibly go wrong? 2 days later, Greg shows up at my door, grinning ear to ear, holding a plate of slightly burnt brownies as a thank you and asking if I wanted to come see the masterpiece. My curiosity got the best of me, so I followed him over, imagining maybe he'd just managed some fancy stripes or a spiral pattern. But as soon as I stepped into his yard, I realized he'd gone full Edward Scissorhands on my mower. Dead center in his lawn was a massive, suspiciously familiar-looking shrub, and by familiar, I mean it was Greg's own face sculpted in grass, down to his unfortunate soul patch. I didn't know whether to be impressed or deeply concerned. Greg, meanwhile, was beaming like he'd just won a Nobel Prize in botany, explaining how he'd always wanted to make a lasting impression on the neighborhood. I pointed out that now, every time I looked out of my kitchen window, I'd be greeted by leafy Greg smirking at me like some chlorophyll big brother. He just shrugged, offered me another brownie, and asked if he could borrow the hedge trimmer for detailing. So, now my backyard is forever linked to this horticultural homage, and my friends refuse to come over unless I promise not to let Greg near the shrubbery again. We've started calling my place the grass is greener on my sideburns, and honestly, I'm just waiting for the day he asks to borrow my snowblower for a winter beard project.